All right, everybody, welcome back to the Malapert Smark podcast. All of our wonderful, lovely subscribers. 74. I'm very proud of this. Up to 74. Every time I see that the number changes, I go, yes, another one. We've captured another one. All right. If anyone's out there wants to help us out, we need subscribers so we can get monetized. Keep doing this show. We're not trying to do this for free. We need some money. Anyways, we got a segment today talking about pro wrestling. 2023 is about to end in a couple days, so we're doing an award show, the Malapert Smark Awards, so this is a very important award show. And there's no trophy, but just our praise should be good enough. This was Robert's idea this morning. He texted me. Robert, the frozen Asian, is with us, by the way. There he is.
Still frozen.
So, and Vlad is down there. Vlad, the wrestling expert. So we're just going to get...
Down where?
Down.
Yeah.
No, actually not.
Oh,
That's an old Scott Hall thing.
Yeah, Vlad, you're so immature. But you learn from the best immature people. Scott Hall was literally the most immature guy. We're watching those videos. The old WCW videos has a lot of Scott Hall in it. And yeah, it's really fun. If you guys want to see something cool, go back and find our playlist of the WCW after Hogan turned evil. A lot of cool Scott Hall stuff in there. But we're here to talk about our 2023 year-end awards. So let's get to it. Robert, why don't you start? Since this was your idea, let's just do best wrestler first. We'll go around the horn. Who was your best wrestler of the year?
I will pick MJF.
All right.
Because he carried AEW for the whole year. Roman Reigns had a lot of really big matches, but I think his inactivity, as far as my vote for best wrestler of the year, his inactivity, especially for the second half of the year, really hurt him. As far
I agree with you on that.
Like who I would choose as the best wrestler of the year. So I'm going with MJF.
All right. How about you, Vlad? Who's your top number one wrestler of 2023?
It could only really be two people, and it's the two people that Robert just mentioned. It could only either be Roman or MJF, realistically. Now, there's a point to make, and Robert basically made it, that the few matches that Roman has had kind of hurts the fact that he be wrestler of the year despite having like 11 total matches in 2023. I think it's a valid criticism, but I also think everything that he was a part of was also really, really good. While MJF worked more, the last half, especially once he kind of turned face, has not really been good. So, I mean, if I have to pick one, I guess I'm going to agree with Robert that it's MJF, but it's really close. Like, you could easily make a case for Roman. I mean, easily. But just because I think MJF doesn't have the WWE machine behind him, his booker is working against him, the creative is awful for him. It's everything that's opposite to, like, Roman Reigns has all the breaks. Like, he's working whatever he wants. He has a machine behind him.
It's true.
Completely behind him. And the creative for him is almost always flawless, for the most part. It's everything that MJF doesn't have. So, and he's still, despite that, we still consider MJF like one of the greats, like not just currently, but maybe even of all time, just based on his work in AEW. So I'm going to give it to MJF just for the fact that he has so much to overcome and he's still getting himself over despite all that.
All right. Interesting. I guess I'll go since I'm a part of this. I'm going to give mine to Cody Rhodes. And
okay.
I can't give it to Roman because Roman, like you said, hasn't worked enough. He's just been sitting backstage talking to Paul Heyman, so I can't call him back. Although you're right, Vlad, his storylines and stuff is good, but you know what? His storyline has been hurt this year because the Bloodline storyline this year is not what it was last year. Last year, it was really good. It had the whole Sami Zayn thing. Everything was hot. This year, they jumped the shark. They went too far with it, so that hurts him, I think. That there's nothing going on with the Bloodline.
Hold on. Just to correct. Most of the stuff with Sami was in the beginning of, well, it was the end of 22 into beginning of 20.
To the beginning of 22.
So I would still say that he had, we'll talk about that Sami thing later. I think I'll come back because it's definitely one of my picks for something.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, I'll let you go. I'm sorry.
No, I was saying Roman, the Bloodline storyline. It jumped the shark because it should have basically ended. Cody, they didn't need to extend Cody another year to win the title. Like, this was a waste. We didn't really get much out of it, out of this being extended for another year, other than it just kind of extended it for another year so that they could sell tickets. But the proper thing to do would have been to end it at WrestleMania last year with Cody winning. So I don't really like his storylines. MJF too, he turned face. and he kind of lost me there. He's good. He's good. You know, he's really good. He's a good baby face, and he's doing as best he can with it, as best as anyone can with it. But the whole thing with Adam Cole and the silly storylines, and I think especially since he has a role in creative in there, I have to take some points off there. Cody Rhodes, I see nothing wrong. He didn't book himself to lose at WrestleMania. He did everything they asked him to do, and his storyline hasn't been as bad. He fought Brock Lesnar, which was good for his character. He ended up winning, going over Hot Trilogy. I think that really was good for him, and he's carrying the company as a babyface, and fans are really taking to him. No one's saying anything negative about him, really. It's very professional. So I'm going to give it to Cody. I hope he wins the title at WrestleMania, because that should be the story. It should have been the story last year, but they fucked it up, so they can finish it this year if they want to. But that's all I got to say about that, unless anyone has a response.
Well, just real quick. I think the only other names that I had that listed, I mean, it is one of those two guys, or it could be Cody as well, but I did have Cody listed as a possibility. Seth Rollins is another one. Obviously, hate his character. We've talked about this, but he is a great worker, and a lot of people did have him as quote-unquote the wrestler of the year in their whatever websites and picks and whatnot. And I think some love should be thrown Samoa Joe's way, because I think he has been great for his whole. So I'm not saying he should be the wrestler of the year, but he should at least be in consideration. I'm gonna throw out a couple names, and that's it. That's really the list, like 5-6 guys that it could potentially be, but it really is.
I had honorable mentions on mine. Dominic Mysterio. I did list MJF too.
Interesting.
And Gunther.
Gunther's a great pick.
Yeah, Gunther's a good pick, yeah.
All right, well, I'm going to move on to the best angle of the year, which we're doing this a little early. We're shooting this on the 29th, so the year's not quite over. We still have World's End, so Christian and Edge could still win this possibly, depending on what they do in this angle. But you know what? I'm going to not bet on that, so let's just not include that, I guess, and everything else. So I'll start with Vlad on this one. How about your best angle of the year 2023?
Okay, well, it was Sammy and the Bloodline angle that they had earlier this year that started. The breakup, him being part of it, how they broke up, what happened at the Royal Rumble, then their match in Montreal with Roman, all hot, all tremendous, all great. I mean, the breakup at Royal Rumble, like when he hit Roman with the chair, is one of the best moments of the year, and that was like the beginning of the year. For me, as a wrestling fan, I thought that was so flawlessly done. I thought the whole thing, the build up to it was so good. That was the best angle they had. I mean, you could say that it kind of started in 2022, but it was part of 2023 as the Roman and Sammy match was in February or March? I think February of 2023, prior to WrestleMania. Right?
Well, listen, if you got honorable mentions, I'm going to hold off on that till the end. Yeah. Because I don't want one of your honorable mentions to be one of ours.
Okay, go. I doubt it, but go ahead.
I'll go second on this one. My angle of the year is Dominic Mysterio turning on his father, Ray, for not being there for him as a kid, and their ensuing match at WrestleMania. That, to me, was so good. There was a lot of realism in it, maybe not between them, but you could tell maybe a lot of people on planet Earth have had issues with their parents, and it was very deep to a lot of people. My dad didn't like seeing it. He saw it and it would hurt him. He was like, the idea of a son acting this way towards him, it made him actually hurt his feelings. But anyways, I thought that was super well done. They still had some dealings after WrestleMania too, a little bit, and Bad Bunny was involved and everything, so I thought that was fantastic. That gets my angle of the year for sure, by far. How about Robert?
So my answer is the same as Vlad's. The Sami Zayn versus the Bloodline, even though that did start towards the end of last year, it did continue at the beginning of this year. How it culminated in the Royal Rumble, I thought was very well done, because the angle itself was awesome, but the payoff at that moment was incredible. It paid off in so many different ways in just that one segment at the Royal Rumble. It was fantastic. So this angle had me wanting to know what's going to happen next. I couldn't wait for the next episode of SmackDown or whenever Sami Zayn and the Bloodline was going to show up. I really couldn't wait to see what happens next. And that is something that doesn't happen very often for me, where I'm actually intrigued and curious as to, like, I really, really want to see the next episode. It couldn't come fast enough, you know? So I don't think that the WWE management could have predicted that it would have gotten as hot as it did. I do think that they caught on to the fans' engagement, and they found like lightning in a bottle, and then they rolled with it. And it built up to what it eventually became. I'm pretty sure that they didn't see that coming, that it was going to get that hot. Because honestly, if they did see that coming, it could have been a possibility where they would have somehow made the WrestleMania main event Sami Zayn versus Roman Reigns instead of Cody. If they knew that the angle would get that hot, that could have been very easily a possibility. Like they will make that the main event. Yeah,
I
so
just get the
that,
feeling that some of the top brass in WWE don't see Sammy as a guy that could carry the belt
Correct.
or carry the company. I think that's what it is. I think they think of him as a good worker, a good character to have, but a guy that shouldn't exactly just be the champion and carry the belt like that. Whether we agree or not, I don't know. I mean, I kind of agree to an extent that might be the case. I kind of see him as a secondary character more than like a primary guy, but not to say, but that angle was brilliant, absolutely.
Yes.
Though, so I can't
Anyways,
take anything away from the angle.
Vlad, what was your honorable mentions for best angle?
I mean, there really wasn't that much because having a good angle is kind of a lost art. I'm going to say it's not so much that this was a good angle, but it took up so much time on AEW television that I at least have to mention that. And I had so many problems with it, but I have to mention the MJF and Adam Cole thing just for the simple fact, that it took up so much time. It was on the air. It was there for months. Now, I know you could make a case that it's not even over. It's like it's a continuous thing. But the fact that they started off with that match and then it led to their being friends. It started off well, but then it just fell apart because of the silliness.
The first title eliminator match they had where it ended right when the time limit ended and Adam Cole was about to get the pin. That was really cool. And even their whole storyline together was really cool. It was just the dopey, silly segments that turned off some of the audience.
I don't even understand the point. Like, you're trying to kind of make this a serious angle with, like, your world champion and the top challenger. But then at the same time, you have, like, segments where, like, they're swimming with the Big Show or something. Or I don't know. And there's so many other, like, they're at the restaurant. It was just so dumb. But overall, because it took up so much TV time and because it did kind of get over with the fans, it has to at least be mentioned as honorable mention. It has to.
All right. Robert, did you have any honorable mentions?
That was the same one. So
okay.
that angle all the way up from the beginning of it till the
All in London.
Yeah, from the beginning to that point I thought was really good. Now, we did criticize a lot of the segments leading up to it, like when Adam Cole turned his back on MJF and pretty much said, go ahead, hit me, stuff like that. But I do like how in the actual match in All In, they did a lot of callbacks to the segments that we criticized, and it made sense what they did in the match. So it had my interest. So I do choose that as a honorable mention for sure.
Well, that is a good lead-in to me because it's my turn to go first, and I'm going to do best match. I'm not going to give any type of honorable mention to MJF and Adam Cole for that storyline at all. It deserves no honor as an angle. I will not give any praise to the angle, but their match at the main event of All in London is my match of the year. Which is, I'm just taking it as the match by itself, the reaction from the audience and how people were on the edge of their seat and enjoying it. And it was a really solidly worked match, I think. And that's my match of the year in terms of, like, excitement. I mean, it was pretty close to a 5-star match, too. There was interference, so there wasn't a clean ending. But that's the match I enjoyed the most. Match of the year, Robert.
Okay. For me, I would choose the Iron Man match, the Bryan Danielson versus MJF.
Yeah, but me and Robert are completely
Wow, really? Okay. It was a high quality match, and we definitely know what Bryan Danielson is capable of in those type of matches. This was more of a revelation of MJF's talent. He was been doing great in everything that he's done up to that point, but I was definitely wondering how he would fare in that type of setting where it was like an Iron Man match. Can he hang? How was his cardio like? What pace will they set during that match? Well, can they how long can they keep up that pace? It was very well constructed. I thought they told a lot of good stories in it as well. So overall, really, really good. Not a surprise for me considering Bryan Danielson's involvement. It was more of a revelation for what MJF's capable of. Not that he failed in anything else that he did prior to that. It was good to see that MJF was capable of those type of matches too. So that's my pick for match of the year.
All right, I guess yours is the same, huh, Vlad?
Well, it was, but I will say I have a whole bunch of honorable mentions that also are very close to that match. But I will say that that match was the best for me because, first of all, I mean, we already knew that. I think it kind of sealed MJF as being maybe the best wrestler in the world because we already knew that he was an amazing character, but we didn't know. We've seen him have good matches, but we didn't know like the level that he can go to as far as having a classic match like that for 1 hour. Because going an hour is very different. Very few guys can have a really good. That may have been the best Iron Man match I've ever seen as well. There have been guys that have had great Iron Man matches and stuff like that. There was the stuff with Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels. There was Kurt Angle and Brock Lesnar, and there's been others. This was the very best one I've ever seen. So, yeah, that was my pick, but I want to share some of my honorable mentions. I think the FTR versus Bullet Club Gold 2 out of 3 match at Collision is one of the best tag matches I've ever seen, and also happens to be one of the best matches I've ever seen. So, definitely.
Is that the one that went to a time limit draw? Or is that that was the one where FTR won with 5
That
minutes
was the one
to go?
that they won, I believe. I believe the one that FTR won.
Mm-hmm.
The one that they had before was also really good. Also really good. So both of those, I mean, that one could have been mentioned as well.
Well,
Okay,
that was my honorable mention was the first Bullet Club Gold versus FTR match, the one that went to a draw. I like that one better, but that's just me.
You know, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. I think that's you can make a case. Rhea Ripley versus Charlotte at WrestleMania. Amazing match. Amazing match. Trish Stratus versus Becky Lynch, the cage match that they had. I forgot the pay-per-view. Was it Money in the Bank? I didn't write that down. But that was an amazing match as well. A couple others. Gunther versus Sheamus versus Drew at WrestleMania. The triple threat that they had was really, really good. And 2 others that are probably going to be a little, because they weren't pay-per-view matches. Rhea versus Natalya on Raw. There was a match that they had. I remember, I don't know if, Keon, you remember, I talked to you about it, saying this was one of the best women's matches I've seen in a long, long time.
Oh, I believe it, though. I got to go back and watch that one.
Gunther versus Shorty Gable, as I like to call him. On Raw, they had, for the IC title, was also really, really good. So there was a couple honorable mentions, but obviously Gunther is involved in a lot of the great matches because I think he is overall the best worker that they have in the company. Like overall, like his in-ring stuff is almost flawless. There's a couple honorable mentions, but overall, I think I would have to agree that MJF and Danielson, the fact that they win an hour, was the reason that and it was a classic kind of storytelling match. They did a really good job. So that's why I kind of chose that one over some of the honorable mentions that I had. I'm really surprised at Robert because I thought Robert was going to pick Omega versus Will Ospreay at some pay-per-view that nobody saw.
That was a good match, too.
That was good. That was good.
My honorable mentions were, like Vlad said, the Bullet Club Gold, Jay White, and Juice Robinson match against FTR. Also, I would throw in Ricky Starks against Danielson, the strap match.
Yes, the strap match is so good. That should be mentioned, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that's it. That's all I got.
No WWE matches. No WWE matches. Wow. Okay.
All right. So mine, I would put both of the FTR versus Bullet Club Gold matches on there. I do slightly favor the second one a little bit more, but I think both of them are fantastic. Now, Roman Reigns versus Cody Rhodes. Now, all the way up to the finish, I thought that match was terrific. It's just a shame that the finish was such a downer, but everything up to that point was fantastic, in my opinion. It had that big fight feel, and they really lived up to their potential, to the 2 best in the business, right? So, man, I would say that would be an easy runner-up if it wasn't for how it ended. But prior to that finish, amazing, I want to say. I did also like Roman Reigns versus Sami Zayn. The ring work was pretty good, but man, that crowd was hot. You know how people say the Rock Hogan match in WrestleMania, if you turn off the sound, it's actually garbage, but the fans made it what it was. Well, I would say the Roman Reigns Sami Zayn match, not only was it actually good, the match itself was good, but the crowd was so into it. I was into it. I couldn't take my eyes off the screen. I was so invested in that angle, and they just so happened to pull off a really good match as well.
Yeah.
One last honorable mention I would say would be the collision match between MJF and Kenny Omega, and that would be it.
Okay. All right. That was a pretty good match, too. All right. Well, that'll do it. If anybody wants to leave their comments for what they thought was their favorite wrestler or angle or match of the year, go ahead and do that. We'd be interested to hear from you guys. Hit subscribe and like if you'd like to see more videos. If we're any kind of use to you, hopefully we'll help you kill some time if you're bored. Listen to some wrestling talk. Don't listen to any of those political podcasts that talk about real life and politics. All that stuff is nonsense. This is important, okay? Subscribe to this stuff.
Absolutely. I agree.
All right, we'll see you on the next video. Thank you guys. Thank you to Vlad. Thank you to Robert for joining us today. We'll see you next time.